Red Pill Education for Older Children. Welcome to Dream Vortex Radio with Chris Vortex. You are listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. It is the 4th of August 2012, and this is part 3 of my discussions with Melanie Vritschan. Today's show is entitled Houses of Horror, Biological and Psychological Warfare Experiments, a follow-up show to part 1, Morgellons, The Crime of Silence, and part 2, The History of Mind Control. Welcome back to the show, Melanie. Hello, Melanie?
Hello?
Hello.
Can you hear me, Chris?
I can hear you now. I think you must be muted.
Okay, yeah, so
welcome back to the show for part 3.
Yes, thank you, Chris, for having invited me again to part 3 of our educational shows to lift the technological curtain of secrecy.
What subjects would you like to the audience today, Melanie?
Yes, today, as you said, I would like to talk about biological and psychological warfare experiments. So I would like to focus on the places where these horrendous crimes happened, the houses of horror, as you called it. And in particularly, I would like to look at Plum Island, Detrick, and also, last but not least, the Montauk Project.
Okay, sounds good, thank you. But you also have a personal motivation for being here. Can you explain this?
Yes, I have myself a very young son, and that is my biggest motivation why I'm here today, and also the future of the children of this world. Because, as you know, I have myself Morgellons, which is an invasion of human tissues by nanotechnology, as we discussed in our first show. And I'm living with these symptoms 24/7. I have pain all over my body constantly. I have non-stop electroshocks, vertigo, holograms beamed into my head to frighten and torture me. I have constant current going through my body, which vibrates, strangulation, and so I'm here to say that to wake people up on these horrible violations of human rights that are currently going on in the world. So, and also because I'm concerned about the future of the children on this planet. So that's why I'm here tonight.
Yeah, I hope this can help get the message out, and this is Red Pill Education for Older Children, as I said, and hopefully we can help the next generation so they don't have to live in a blue pill world, a world of technological, whatever you said with the technological curtain. So, would you like to start with Plum Island?
Yes, let's start with Plum Island. So it's going to be already a start, I think, not for the faint-hearted. Plum Island is an island, of course. It's a barrier island. It's approximately 18 kilometers in length, and it's located off the northeast coast of Massachusetts, north of Cape Ann. And why I want to discuss it is that Plum Island hosts the Plum Island Animal Disease Center, the PIADC, and this is a united federal research facility which is dedicated to the study of animal diseases. It's a part of the DHS Directorate for Science and Technology. And since 1954, the center has had the official goal, at least official, of protecting America's livestock from animal diseases. And
so they don't grow strawberries there, except for the elite.
Yeah, and as you very well say, they don't exactly grow strawberries there. In fact, during the Cold War, a secret weapons program targeting livestock was started there. And this program has been the subject of many controversies and raises huge concerns. And we will now see why. So the Plum Island Animal Disease Center is a biological warfare facility, in fact, created by a Nazi scientist, Erich Traub. And Traub was a virologist, and he worked under Reichsführer-SS Heinrich Himmler, who in 1943 took over the Innenministerium, which is the Ministry of the Interior. And Traub worked there. He worked as the lab chief of the Nazi leading bio-weapons facility on Riems Island at the time. And then he was rescued from the Soviet zone of Germany after World War II. And you will see why he was not exactly a present to the United States and the whole world, I would say, because under the auspices of the United States government program Operation Paperclip, which was meant to exploit scientific knowledge gained during Nazi rule Germany, he was then brought to the United States in 1949. And there, well, I mean, this was a Nazi scientist, so he didn't really see why he should do anything else than what he used to do in his Nazi research center on Riems Island, because he specialized in weaponizing various diseases, such as, for example, the foot and mouth disease, of which the virus was dispersed by aircraft onto cattle and reindeer in Russia. So this was one of Traub's work. And in 2010, I saw that Jesse Ventura, in fact, investigated the facility, which causes enormous concern for our safety. And he found things which were really hardly reassuring, in fact. He found out that Plum Island is a bio-war time bomb. So since 9/11, the US government has been opening germ labs all over the country. And the threat we are facing is not coming from any terrorist organization, or not mainly, as we are so often told, but these US labs, they could kill us all. There's serious evidence that regular accidents occur in these labs, and that these accidents are being concealed from the public, because the biodefense industry, of course, does not want the public becoming concerned with activities.
Well, I heard that there's one, I think it may be in Austin, that's a level 2 facility. They're testing all sorts of things there, and they thought that there was a 75% chance in the next 100 years or so that something may be released.
Yes, in fact, all these germ labs, they are now opening all over the country. It's very rare that the proper precautions, safety precautions, are met. So they are basically all little biological warfare time bombs, so ready to explode. So on
university campuses as well.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
then nuclear facilities under universities and such as well. Carry on.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So as I said, in these laboratories, the proper precautions of really, really dangerous pathogens that are developed and getting loose are generally not taken. As you said, it's the case in Austin, and this is more or less the case in all of these germ labs all over the country. And Plum Island is no exception. So it's really bioweapons research is in fact masqueraded as animal research there, and let all kinds of bioweapons escape into the air, water, and in people's neighborhood. Of course, we're not told about that because we certainly do not want the public becoming concerned, and they would be very concerned if the public knew what is actually happening in these on these facilities.
It's also like microwave technology not allowed to be talked about unless they're within the audible sound. Is that right?
That's correct.
Or no, that's heat. That's heat, isn't it? I think. The microwave is you're only allowed to talk about it unless it's heat. I may get that wrong.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the microwave experiments a little later. But to come back to Plum Island, in fact, Plum Island is a research facility, and it's now the facility is now run by the Homeland Security, and we have got very serious concern that scientists are suspected, because scientists are suspected to, in fact, violate the Geneva Convention in creating these biological weapons. And Plum Island is without any doubt one of the most dangerous biolabs that exist on the planet. And now, I mean, as if this wasn't already dangerous enough and creating enough concern, basically, now there are even plans, Chris, you will not believe it, to move the facility into the heart of America, where all the food supplies, or the majority of food supply comes from, and that is in Kansas. So not only we're already sitting on a biological warfare time bomb, basically, with this island facility. No, we're even taking it one level danger in moving it into the heart of the food supply. And as you said very, very correctly, Chris, is that on top of it, it's planned to be located in a university campus.
Ah, okay.
So so this is very concerning, of course, and because it's even more concerning as there have been. It's not only suspected that there are outbreaks. There have been a number of confirmed outbreaks from Plum Island. Sorry. For example, there is a creature which they all call the Montauk monster. And nobody really knows what it is. Several of these bizarre creatures were found washed up on the shore of Plum Island. And none of the scientists that looked at these creatures could really explain what species it is. So people thought it was an animal that has been crossbred, in fact. So it seems to be a complete new species developed in this facility. And so
did they test it to see what the genetic makeup was? Did anybody do that?
Yes, but it could not be explained. It's something completely new. Some said that it had something of a raccoon and a chicken. So I mean, it's obviously been crossbred, but nobody could really completely solve the mystery of this creature.
Sometimes there have been stories of creatures being washed up and then they're taken away, or the evidence is wiped and stuff.
Yes, it was not taken away, but nobody could really, of the scientists that looked at it, could really explain what it was. It seems to be a completely new species, and the proximity of Plum Island, it is very probable that it has been bred there, whatever it was. So. And so Plum Island has a history, in fact, of animals which should never have escaped from there. And as an example, to come back to Erich Traub, when he set the war lab facility up there, he did this setting basically the same lab up, like the one in which he had in Germany. And he focused, the main focus of his research was to develop insects and ticks that to be used as biological warfare weapons. And was, for example, Chris, it was Traub's idea to inject animal diseases into ticks and then release them as bioweapons.
Well, that's what they're doing now, isn't it?
Yes. So, and it was started by Erich Traub. It was his idea. And, I mean, the evidence we have shows us clearly that this was not just going on. That is really a biological war, time bomb, and anyway, these animals should not have gotten at the first place in the first place, but they did.
Well, it's interesting that they're releasing all these insects at the moment, all these mosquitoes, and apparently they're going to inject people, vaccinate people, and it's a bit suspicious, just a bit.
Yeah, it is indeed. Yeah. So,
especially while saying that you want to lower the population and saying that things like that can actually help. Vaccines can help reduce the population. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, interesting. All part of the depopulation agenda, if you ask me. But okay. So, as I've just mentioned, there was really a series of accidents at Plum Island that were extremely dangerous. For example, there was the 1978 accidents where there was apparently a problem with the negative pressure system at the laboratory. And some of these very, very dangerous foot and mouth disease viruses came out. So they're obviously not very good at controlling the security there, because there have really been a number of these outbreaks where these viruses or diseases got out and infected the public, in fact. So but the most terrible accident that happened there was the creation of Lyme disease. Most people don't know that this was actually an accident that happened on Plum Island. So a biological warfare experiments of the German Nazi scientists again, Erich Traub, and that got out of control. And so this is how Lyme disease was created. There is an investigating journalist, Karl Grossman, and he wanted to know a little bit more about this Lyme disease creation and this terrible accident, and he requested, in fact, the records of these ticks experiments conducted at Plum Island, and what he was told was that no such records exist. Now that is very bit suspicious, because government has always got records. They record everything they do. So then to be told that we don't have any records about these ticks experiments, that is very suspicious, indeed. It's not.
Yeah, the records always go at interesting times. That's probably for another show as well.
Yeah, that's indeed true. So in most recent times, you will not believe it, but there have even been human experiments on Plum Island, which went terribly wrong. I mean, it's already wrong to do human experiments in the first place, you will tell me, but this really tops it all, I believe. There was a human body found with 5 holes drilled into his head, and he had exceptionally long fingers. So Plum Island is obviously a bioware laboratory and using people as guinea pigs. The dead male body with these long fingers that was found, in fact, in January 2010, and he had 5 holes in his skull, as I said. And even though he was found in January, he was wearing only a short-sleeved shirt and cargo pants, so very lightly dressed. And he had no identification, so the case remains solved, because we never found out where this man came from and what happened to him. So the police, after investigation, they think that the 5 holes in his head were a product of a neurosurgery. Obviously, very, very dark experiments going on there involving humans that are used as guinea pigs. So it's indeed very concerning, and quite concerned that actually this whole facility and what is going on there is not coming more on the.
Well, it makes you think that that person must have been in there for a long time. Maybe if he had long fingers. I mean, maybe he was an experiment, even a genetic experiment.
Yes, that is to be suspected. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm. So, after all this, I've just told you about the danger of Plum Island and this horrible. Yeah, it's basically a time bomb. Not that this wasn't dangerous enough and wouldn't create enough concern, but now they want to move the facility to Kansas. As I said, at the university, in the middle of cattle country, where any accident would immediately be a total disaster. So this is very, very concerning, and people are not told about it. Of course, the public is left in the dark about these experiments going on and the plans for this extremely dangerous facility for the future and the very near future. So.
Yeah, it could be foot and mouth and everything else.
Yeah, it could be a total disaster. The smallest accident could really turn immediately into a total disaster. So I thought it was worth mentioning today on the show to make people aware of this danger. So, as we have not, this was Plum Island. I mean, there are many more things to say about Plum Island, but to wrap it up, it is really a biological germ warfare time bomb ready to explode.
So, yes, thank you for explaining that. Hopefully, somebody who's in Kansas can do something about that and spread the word.
Yeah.
Do you want to say any more about that, or would you like to move on to Fort Detrick?
No, I think we can move on. Unfortunately, Fort Detrick is not going to be much more, not really better news, I must say. So it's not going to be much more reassuring than what I've just told you about Plum Island. Fort Detrick, in fact, is U.S. Army Medical Command installation, and it's located in Frederick in Maryland, in the USA. And historically, Fort Detrick was the center for the United States Biological Weapons Program. So we're not totally leaving the subject, as you see. This biological weapons program went on from 1943 to 1969. And there were various experiments conducted there. It's biomedical research and development, medical material management, global medical communications, and also it focuses on the study of foreign plant pathogens. Fort Detrick is huge. It's a huge facility, and it's also the largest employer in Frederick County in Maryland. And actually, at least that's what we're told, Fort Detrick was designated to conduct peacetime biomedical research. And its role is to be the world's leading research campus for biological agents requiring special containment. And why I talk about Fort Detrick in particularly, or how it's going to link us to our second show, our last show, the history of mind control, where we talked a lot about the CIA involvement in these mind control experiments. So what I would like to mention regarding Fort Detrick is there was a special case that created much media attention. In fact, it has to do with the death of a scientist who had worked at Fort Detrick, and the poor man fell from a hotel window in New York City on the 28th of November 1953. And his name was Frank Olson. And Frank Olson was a biochemist working with the CIA and had been assigned as a contact with the CIA's technical service staff, which was run by a character we mentioned also in the last show, by Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, and also his deputy, Robert Lashbrook. And they were involved in experiments with bioweapons, toxins, and the famous mind control drugs. And to link it again to our last show, this was basically the MK Ultra program, which was previously known as Artichoke, and earlier the Project Bluebird. So why I mentioned Frank Olson is, in fact, what happened to him was that in 1953, when he was deputy acting head of special operations for the CIA, Olson associated with Dr. William Sargent, and they were investigating the use of psychoactive drugs at Britain's Biological Warfare Center, another house of horror, at Porton Down, in fact. So with this, in this position, Frank Olson was privy to the most the innermost secrets, basically, of the CIA interrogation and biowarfare programs. So he was really at a crucial, at a strategic, really, really important position, and he was really privy to all the secrets that of the CIA that very, very few people have access to, but very few people know about. So
how did he? Do people know how he fell or where he fell, etc.?
Yes. Well, we're coming to this, and
okay.
What we're gonna get, we're gonna go get the official version, and then what was actually suspected, and it's becoming more and more clear now what actually happened to him. So, according to this, what we know about the story is what Ed Regis, who's an American author, and by the way, his topics, which will link us to our first show, More Gallons of Silence. Most of his topics have included nanotechnology, transhumanism, and biological warfare. And so Ed Regis, he had reported that, in fact, Olson, about 10 days before his death, this was could be found out later, was that he was dosed, apparently, with LSD at a meeting that took place at Deep Cree Lake, and Deep Cree Lake was about 3 hours by car from Camp Detrick. And what happened there is on November 18th, 1953, about a week before Thanksgiving and Frank Olson's ill-fated fall out of the hotel window, so met there a group from the SO division, and this included Vincent Rivette, chief of the division, John Schwab, Frank Olson, Ben Wilson, Gerald Jonas, and John Malonowitsky, and they met up and drove out together to the retreat. And officially, this was a meeting where they were supposed to discuss ongoing research. And there, at this lodge, was a hunting lodge, they were in fact met by Sid Gottlieb and his deputy Lashbrook. So the people I've just talked about that were at the head of the CIA technical service staff, concerned with the MK Ultra program, basically. So they met there officially they were told it's a working meeting, it's to discuss ongoing research. But what happened, it went terribly wrong, this meeting, is that after dinner, Gottlieb, in fact, spiked a bottle of Cointreau with a small quantity of a substance that he and his colleagues privately always referred to as the seronium, but it's in fact LSD. So he drugged them against their knowledge, of course, without their knowledge. And this experiment went terribly wrong. So Olson apparently, when he found out that he had been drugged, reacted very badly to this and became increasingly psychotic. And after the experiments, after this experience, what happened is that he was very shocked by this, and he went to see his boss, Lieutenant Colonel Rivet, who was also at this meeting, and he told him that he either wanted to quit his job or to be fired, and that he had decided that he wanted to get out of the germ warfare business, and he wanted to devote his life to something completely different.
So do we know why they put the LSD in there, or was it just that they're just messing with each other kind of thing?
Yes, we do, because in fact we know that by this deputy head of the technical services, the colleague of Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, who spiked the drinks. He said that in an interview later that he knew, everybody at the CIA knew at that time, that you were kind of expected to be subject to an experiment one day or another. And you were not really told, okay, if you don't do it, then we'll fire you. But there was a lot of peer pressure. It was common knowledge that could happen to you sooner or later, and that you were kind of expected to accept this as part of your job, these kind of experiments. So, and obviously, Sidney Gottlieb, he decided to use this opportunity of this meeting to conduct one of his secret experiments involving LSD. So, when Olson told his boss, Lieutenant Colonel Rivet, he was so shocked by what happened that he wanted to quit the germ warfare business. His boss, unfortunately, did not accept his resignation, and instead decided that Olson just needed psychiatric attention, and decided that he needed to see a psychiatrist. But instead of sending him to the base hospital, where they would have had many good CIA-cleared psychiatrists, he called Gottlieb's deputy, that I've just mentioned, Robert Lashbrook, and to arrange for Olson to see a psychiatrist. Yes, but not at the base hospital. But they decided that they would send him, Lashbrook and Gottlieb decided to send Olson to a certain Dr. Harold Abramson in New York. Abramson had, in fact, no formal training in psychiatry and did not hold himself out to be a psychiatrist. So he was not a psychiatrist officially. He was an allergist and an immunologist, and he was just interested. He had a personal interest in treating the problems of the mind, but he was by no means a psychiatrist. So you would ask yourself, well, why did Gottlieb choose him? And he chose him because he had a top secret CIA security clearance. And because he had been working with LSD before. So what Gottlieb was in fact doing by choosing him was that he was obviously protecting his own bureaucratic position by not letting anyone outside TSS know what he done, because he had, in fact, failed to observe the order to seek higher approval for LSD use. So he had violated the procedure, and so he thought that basically Abramson would be a good choice because his secret would be safe with him. And so he decided to send Olson to this doctor who was by no means a psychiatrist. So we will see that this decision had really fatal consequences. What happened is that Olson sank deeper and deeper into a feeling of depression, inadequacy, guilt, paranoia. So he was in a very, very bad state indeed. And the treatment, so to speak, of this Dr. Abramson was not really what could have cured him or helped him in any shape or form, I believe. Because, Dr. Abramson saw Olson at his office, but in the evening, the allergist had been seen visiting Olson in his hotel room, and he was armed with a bottle of bourbon and a bottle of the sedative Nembutal, so which is a very unusual combination for a doctor to give to somebody with symptoms that like Olson's. So I mean, any doctor knows that if you're having a depression, then alcohol or bourbon is certainly not the right treatment to give to your patient. But nevertheless, he did that, and also he mixed it with the sedatives, which is, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I mean, in my opinion, already quite dangerous, especially if somebody is depressed, and as they said, he was suicidal. So at least the CIA said that.
So all of this just because he wanted to leave.
Yes. So It is indeed already quite suspicious. I think that they wouldn't accept his resignation and tried everything to hold him there and to cure him with somebody who was not really a psychiatrist, and on top of it with a bottle of bourbon and sedatives is more than suspicious to me.
It doesn't sound like curing somebody.
Yes, not really. So in my opinion, they were more trying to find out to what extent Olson was a security risk more for the CIA rather than being interested in curing him. So Olson, of course, didn't get better. So he got more and more depressed, more and more paranoid, more and more anxious, and his state worsened. So finally, after trying his bourbon cure and having met with him a couple of times, this Dr. Abramson, who was not a psychiatrist, finally he realized, he had more on his hands with Olson than he could handle. And so he finally recommended hospitalization. And Olson then agreed to enter Chestnut Lodge, which is a Rockville, Maryland sanatorium. And this sanatorium had really CIA cleared psychiatrists on the staff. So he said, he agreed to enter the sanatorium. So what happened then is that Olson and Lashbrook, which was Dr. Sidney Gottlieb's deputy, had decided to spend one last night at the Statler Hotel in New York, and they took a room on the 10th floor. So to me, this is already a little bit the irony in itself. If somebody is, as they said, depressed and suicidal, I don't think it's a very good idea to rent a room on the 10th floor. And especially in these days, there were no security on the windows. Like often in hotels nowadays you cannot even open the window. There was nothing. So they put this depressed suicidal man on the 10th floor, the top floor of the hotel, to spend his last night there, because after that he was supposed to check on this officially recognized sanatorium. So they had one last dinner and came back to the hotel room, and there Olson felt a little bit better, so he decided to call his wife for the first time. He had a wife and 3 small kids. And, he told her that he was feeling a little better. They had a pleasant talk. And she was also a little bit more reassured, because she didn't really understand what was going on. So
when was the last time he had contacted?
The last time he hadn't contacted her for a week whilst he was in New York, meeting with the so-called psychiatrist. Mm-hmm. And on the last night before he was supposed to come home, basically decided to call her because he felt a little better. And so she felt a little bit more reassured, and he said that he would come home tomorrow and check into this CIA sanatorium. So they both thought there would be a solution maybe to his problems. And but what happened then was that in the early hours of the morning, Frank Olson crashed through the drawn blinds and the closed window on a dead run. So he fell 10 floors down. And what is very surprising is that the blinds were drawn and the window was closed. So personally, I've never heard about anybody that jumps through a closed window to commit suicide. Usually,
yeah, especially after saying that he was okay.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's all very suspicious. So, but it gets even more of a conspiracy, or more suspicious, I think, because in those days when you had to pass a call, you had to call the hotel operator, and she would then listen if you got connected. So just after Olson's death, Lashbrook a disturbing call, which was overheard by the hotel operator, and he asked her to call a number. And when the man picked up, he just said he's gone. And the other man replied, "Well, that's sad." And both hung up. So this to me is really suspicious. I mean, it doesn't sound like it sounds there's something rotten, you know.
Well, it sounds like what they were talking about, doesn't it? If somebody says he's gone, well, anyway.
Yeah. He only said he's gone, and the other answered, "Well, that's sad." And they both hung up.
Yeah.
So, very strange. So, and in fact, the detectives that were assigned to the case then later reported that getting information out of Lashbrook was like pulling teeth. So he was obviously not very forthcoming with the information and not very talkative. And so that led to them speculating to each other that the case could be in fact a homicide with homosexual overtones, because they were in fact sharing a room. So the family was given the official explanation that this was a tragic suicide. And many years passed until 1993, after the death of Mr. Olson's wife. The children of Dr. Olson decided in fact to reopen the case and to perform an autopsy. So his family had been told before the funeral that the coffin would be closed due to horrible cuts and lacerations in the face that were just too horrible to see, and the body was too mutilated. And the first surprise when they performed this autopsy was that there was no laceration at all in Olson's face, as it had been claimed. He had not one cut. So soon after this fact was then made public, Lashbrook, who holds his version for 40 years, changed suddenly his version of the story and said that he could in fact not remember if the window was open or if it was closed. So it was also revealed by this autopsy that Frank Olson had sustained serious injuries to his head, chest, leg. So Congressman Traficant, in fact, is now calling for an official investigation into the Olson case, as it seems that Olson, exactly as recommended in a CIA assassination manual, was first struck on the head, and then possibly he could have been drugged before, and then thrown from the window. And that fits, as I said, completely with what CIA assassins are to be told in a manual, how to quickly get rid of somebody. So,
and would this drug not be able to be recognized, or did they test to see if he was to see what was in him?
Yeah, what I could see just from this autopsy is that before falling to his death, he had sustained serious injuries to the head, chest, and leg that were not caused by the poison. In fact, the one to the head, at least, it's an injury that you typically get if you're hit with a hard object to your head. So, and that's a typical CIA procedure if you want to kill somebody. So the case is still unsolved, but it's Congressman Traficant is now calling for this official investigation. So to know after 40 years or more even what actually happened to.
And this is ongoing right now. When did that open up?
It was the autopsy was performed in '93, and the case is still open. It's still unsolved. So will we ever know what happened to him? I don't know, but the investigation has been reopened since then. So, but the biological warfare programs and the chemical interrogation programs that they remained almost completely hidden from the public until Nixon's closure of the biowarfare program in 1969 and the famous Church Committee hearings of 1975. So what happened to all these biological warfare programs, chemical interrogation programs, using LSD and other drugs I've just mentioned, where Dr. Olson was himself used as a guinea pig at this meeting, they remained completely hidden from the public until Nixon, in fact, officially closed the biowarfare program in 1969. So, and in fact, on Veterans Day, November 11th, 1969, then President Richard Nixon asked the Senate to ratify the 1925 Geneva Protocol prohibiting the use of chemical and biological weapons. So he, on November 25th, 1969, he made a statement, an official statement, outlawing offensive biological research in the USA. And since that time, research done at Fort Detrick has been purely defensive in nature, at least that's what we're told, and focusing on diagnostics, preventives, and treatment for BW infections. So officially, the biological warfare program has been closed since 1969 by President Nixon. So this is Fort Detrick.
So you wanted to... I mean, we've just covered Plum Island and what was that? Fort Detrick. So we're coming up to the end of the first hour. So would you like to have an overview of maybe those two before we move on to Montauk in the second hour? I'm sorry.
Yes, well, an overview, let's say, the third subject, which is the Montauk Project, might actually give us more clues into what we're officially told, that this biological warfare programs and chemical interrogation programs and ultra mind control programs, that we were told they were officially closed. But I believe that what we'll learn in the second hour will show us that officially these were not closed and they were well alive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you've been leading up to Montauk then?
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So can you speak on the Montauk monster before we move on, because you mentioned that?
The Montauk monster, yes, that might be a good link to the Montauk Project as a whole. Is that yes, as I said, there were these creatures that were found washed up upon the shore of Long Island. In recent years, I believe this happened in 2010. It's been happening 2-3 years ago. And these bizarre creatures, they were obviously animals that had been crossbred. No scientist could explain what species this is. It seems to be a complete new species, and obviously, a result of an experiment. So, genetic experiment. And yeah, as I said, nobody knows what they are and what was the purpose of them being bred. So, but most probably they came from Plum Island.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of rumors of crossbreeding with humans and other animals.
Yes, of course. If you have Plum Island has a long history of animals that should never have escaped, as I said, and if you have somebody who's had a Nazi scientist like Erich Traub, who specializes in developing insects and ticks to be used as biological warfare, if the facility is set up by such a man, then you can imagine what else is being bred there, what we don't know about. So I think it's a huge concern, and much is kept from the public, So
yeah, I heard something about some ants were manipulated. Genetics were manipulated. Old genes were opened up so that they became bigger and more aggressive.
Yes. So I don't know if you've heard about the spider ghost.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, at the moment, there's a lot of well, I say at the moment, but I believe it's since a long time that many of these experiments are shrouded, of course, where animals are crossbred and new species created, and to be used as biological warfare, as weapons, and things that should never have come out did come out.
The milk of the goats that has spider web like substance in it, doesn't it? And then you can make armor from that.
Yes, I heard they're planning to do it for armors against radiation. So that's what I've heard. So I wonder, do we have radiation issues? We're not told about. So, there are many animals that are crossbred that are used as weapons, basically. And as I just said, not only animals, also viruses like the foot-and mouse disease viruses that also came out, and also came from Plum Island. So I believe that it's a real concern, and people are not aware of it. So because if they were, then I believe there would be much more questions coming from the public. Because obviously, who would like their family themselves, their children to be exposed to such a danger? These just one little tiny accident, and the security precautions in these germ labs are just not met, and Plum Island is not an exception, and just one little tiny mistake, and all kinds of bioweapons could escape, and land in our neighborhoods. So it's a concern. It's a real concern. And especially if you look at a disease such as Magellan's, you always ask yourself, well, was it an accident or was it intentional?
It looks pretty intentional if it's if it's got synthetic DNA, etc.
Yes, it does. It has artificial DNA, indeed, that helps it to start a self-assembling and auto-replicating process.
Welcome back to Hour 2 of Dream Vortex Radio with Chris Vortex on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We are continuing on today's topic, Houses of Horror, with our guest, Melanie Vritschan. Before we move along, we have a question from the chat, Melanie. I just find that.
Yes.
Okay. The person says, I know there are underground bunkers for the elite, and I know they have saved seeds. How are they preserving animal life?
How are they preserving animal life? Well, I mean, I'm not a scientist, but from what I've heard is that recently from in fact a microwave weapons expert, Dr. Erich Traub, that you just mentioned at the beginning of the show, is that what they've found is that any viruses, bacteria, even very, very dangerous fungi that they can in fact lay in the ground or be kept for hundreds of years basically, and then be woken again. So I don't know if this is the question the caller asked, but I know that there's any virus bacteria can be kept hundreds of years, in fact, and then be woken again. So,
yeah, I'm guessing they keep the seeds for the animals just as they keep the seeds for the plants. So yeah. Okay. Well, would you like to move on to Montauk now, the grand finale?
Yes, let's move on to the grand finale, Montauk Project. Yes, the Montauk Project was a series of secret United States government projects, and they were conducted at Camp Hero, or the Montauk Air Force Station in Montauk, so Long Island, and for the purpose of developing psychological warfare techniques and exotic research, even including time travel. So, regarding time travel, teleportation, regarding this research, in fact, there is one very famous project, or the most famous, which is called the Philadelphia experiment. And the history to this is that during World War II, many Allied ships were torpedoed and sunk by the German U-boats. So to make the destroyers protecting these convoys, these ships, more effective, scientists came up with a very ambitious plan. They wanted to render the ships invisible on the radar. So, in fact, this is an alleged invention of Albert Einstein himself, who was working for the Navy at the time. So this Philadelphia experiment, which has become famous and is really almost incredible, has been reported to us via an eyewitness, somebody called Carlos Allende, and he told us that the ship for this experiment, the ship they chose, was the USS Elbridge,
I think your audio went out a bit there. So you said USS Eldridge.
Yes.
Okay.
Indeed. So I hope people can hear me. So yes, they chose the ship USS Eldridge, and so as I said, this experiment was based on research that Albert Einstein did, who was working for the Navy. And the method they used was based on Einstein's field theory to bend light, and thus made the ship invisible because it was encased in this electromagnetic fog. So, but remember, the idea of this experiment was primarily to render the ship invisible on the radar. But when the experiment was carried out, to their amazement, they not only had radar invisibility, so it really disappeared on the radar, but they had optical invisibility. The ship disappeared. It vanished. So people were very confused, and we know this from this eyewitness account. There was apparently a greenish fog that built up, and that then rendered the whole ship invisible. And this was more than they expected, so to say. And it then began to reappear in the harbor of Norfolk in Virginia, which was 300 miles away from where the experiment happened, and from which it then vanished again and reappeared in Philadelphia.
So how many witnesses were there for this jumping from one place and then back again?
Yeah, I don't know how many, but a few of the Navy staff and onlookers were there, and such as Carlos Allende, who also worked for the Navy. So so there were a few people that were the scientists to conduct this research. And a few people that had heard of it, that worked for the Navy, that wanted to see it basically. And one of these eyewitnesses was Carlos Allende. So the ship then reappeared in Philadelphia, and it had no damage, so it was completely unharmed. But for the crew, it was a different story. So the crew did not arrive unharmed. People were literally buried in the steel. So they had bonded with the ship, if you want. A man was buried, for example, in the steel up to his wrist. It was an absolutely horrific sight. Sailors, they were completely missing, and people were really screaming, shouting, and had really, literally bonded with the steel of the ship. So some men went insane, they caught fire, it was absolutely horrific. And what happened to this crew? And in fact, the human nervous system could not take exposure to that level of magnetic and electric fields. It causes extreme neuro damage. So, and some of the sailors were completely missing. They had vanished. So, after this, many did survive, were institutionalized, in fact. Or the of those that got missing, the family was then told that, they were lost at sea as part of the war effort, and this was obviously a very credible explanation. But because of these horrors that occurred, in fact, the Navy then decided to abandon the whole project. And the witnesses to it, the few that witnessed it, as you said, upon which Carlos Allende, they were sworn to draconian oaths of secrecy, and with this, the Navy experiment in invisibility and teleportation was then closed. And this project, in fact, was called Project Rainbow, and it was cancelled and classified, and it decided to abandon this kind of research. The other project that at Montauk, and this is how it's gonna link us to our last show, the history of mind control, was indeed a project that focused on mind control. It was a particularly horrific project and it consisted in young boys, primarily boys. Why did they choose boys? Because female energy absorbs, whereas male energy projects. In fact, so what they were looking here, that's why they looked for primarily young boys, and they were kidnapped from their homes or snatched from the streets. So many children disappeared. And then they were taken to the Montauk base, and there they were subject to the most horrific experiments, which were, most of them died. I think only 1%. I believe there were about 300,000 children that participate in this experiment, at least that we can account for, and only 1% survived. And from what I've heard, they were not supposed to survive. So they thought, in fact, that all of the children, that no human being could survive, something like that. That was the plan, at least. So the earliest adolescent victims of Montauk-style programming, they were called, in fact, the Montauk Boys. And they were programmed using trauma-based techniques. So, and these techniques, and there we're coming to another huge Nazi criminal Nazi scientist that was brought to the USA by the Operation Paperclip that I've mentioned earlier on. Is so Mengele, he was the death of Auschwitz, how they called him, and they used these trauma-based techniques on these young boys to program them. And he was, in fact, Dr. Joseph Mengele. He was, in fact, the principal developer of the trauma-based Montauk Project. And to come back again to what we mentioned before, and first show the history of mind control, and to CIA's MK Ultra mind control programs. So he was the principal developer of this.
And his nickname was the Angel of Death.
Exactly, you're very right, Chris. They called him the Angel of Death. And he was experimented on prisoners in Auschwitz. He tested his trauma-based techniques on them. And so he continued in Montauk with these young boys that were kidnapped from their homes or snatched from the streets. So many primarily male children disappeared in these days. And so the method that Mengele developed was then eventually abandoned, in fact, in favor of an all-electronic induction process, which could be installed, so to speak, in a matter of days or even hours, instead of many years that it took to completely program somebody according to these trauma-based methods.
So they create compartments to create amnemic barriers between areas of the brain to have multiple personality. Yeah,
that is correct. That is the aim of these mind control programs like Monarch and MK Ultra, among others. So these experiments were particularly horrific, as I said. What else can you expect from a the angel of death that operated in Auschwitz, Dr. Joseph Mengele. So the children, when they were brought there, they were beaten, they were tortured, they were giving electroshocks, some were killed, and they were even brought near drowning. So to give them the experience as if they would be drowned. What is nowadays called waterboarding, I believe. And then the person that would save the kid at the last moment, he would then say to him that he was saved, had become was saved because of him, and this person then became his handler. So it was absolutely horrific what happened there.
And also it was about either some of these experiments, it was either that the kid died or they split into an altar.
Yes, that's correct. That there were indeed many of these experiments that was a fatal outcome for the child. So certain children, at least the ones who survived the training, if you can call that a training, would become future mind control slaves who would be used for thousands of different jobs, ranging from anywhere from sexual slavery to assassinations. And as you've just mentioned, a really substantial portion of these children, many were intentionally slaughtered, and as if this was not enough, it was done in front of or even by the other children to traumatize them, the selected trainee, and into total compliance and submission. So the other children were forced to look how this child was slaughtered, and many of these that were in fact considered expendable. So because they obviously thought that they would not lack in guinea pigs, and this was part of the program, the training. So they were intentionally slaughtered either in front of the children or even other children that were told that they had to slaughter them to traumatize them to a maximum, and so to achieve total compliance and submission. So you can imagine, and this it's one of the godfathers or the forefathers of modern mind control programs was this Joseph Mengele, and these are the trauma-based techniques that he developed. It is absolutely horrendous, and what we are experiencing now, what is going on now, is in fact just the aims of these mind control programs are still the same, but as I said, there are now more done using an electronic induction process with these technologies that we are victims to, what we discussed in our first show and our second show, Morgellons and the history of mind control. So there were basically these programs, the techniques, trauma-based techniques are still the same. They were developed by people like Mengele, but moving with technologies to more technology, electronic-based induction process, and it's now really people think that MK Ultra was abandoned. It is alive and well, and it is more and more technology-based. So,
we had a question from the chat about the ship, the experiment.
Yes.
Was that not a transportation experiment?
Yes, in fact, it was indeed an experiment in teletransportation. So that's what it was. Mm-hmm.
And it kind of worked then, the Philadelphia experiment. Yeah.
if we believe the eyewitness, or especially this eyewitness, Carlos Allende, it did work. But the outcome was absolutely horrifying. As I said, the sailors were basically bonded with part of the ship, or buried in steel, or half buried in steel. Found out that the human nervous system could just not take such an exposure to that level of magnetic and electric fields, and they caused huge neuro damage. And so they decided to cancel the project and to classify it, Project Rainbow, as it was called. And from these eyewitness accounts, the eyewitnesses say that, or Carlos Allende's report, that then people that did witness this experiment, which worked, if you want to, at least for the ship, it could be teletransported, were sworn to an absolute draconian level of secrecy. They were supposed to never tell what they had seen, and everything was shrouded in mystery, and basically the project, if we are to believe what Carlos Allende told us, was abandoned. But for the ship, to answer the caller's question, it was a success. Yes, it could be not only rendered invisible on the radar, but really physically it disappeared, and to reappear then, that's why it's called Philadelphia experiment in the Philadelphia harbor.
Well, maybe they had to shift the energy of the ship to make it perhaps go into another level of reality to then re-emerge. So maybe now they've got to the point where they can simply de-manifest and re-manifest. I don't know.
Yes, it is possible. I don't know. I've seen that apparently there are what they call these electromagnetic cloaks. I've seen them in one documentary, I believe, that they were able to, if it's true, to render invisible a few soldiers with this electromagnetic cape or cloak. But I've heard, apparently, if it's true, is that it does work, but they cannot use it very long, because apparently under this cape or cloak, or whatever you want to call it, it gets extremely hot. So no human being can stand it.
So what has that got to do with the Montauk Project?
It has to do, because you asked me, well, maybe they've succeeded now in rendering things invisible. And apparently with this ship, it worked. So, and what they were trying to do there, as I said, was based on Einstein's field theory, to bend light and make the ship invisible. And it did work, so it disappeared, not only from the radar, but so they had also optical invisibility. And I don't know, but I wonder if these electromagnetic capes or cloaks or whatever that apparently the army has developed is not based on the same principle. You see?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I mean, how does this relate to the mind control element? I mean, what are the links between the Philadelphia experiment and, say, Montauk?
Yes, in fact, the Montauk Project is an over, how do you say, had two different, sides to this experiment. There was one side where they focused on time travel and teleportation. This was which was the most famous project, the Philadelphia experiment, that apparently succeeded, at least if you believe the eyewitness accounts. And the other part was then a pure mind control program. And they called it the Montauk Boys, because it happened in this on the Montauk Air Force Station. So, but there were two sides to it, if you want to. One was focusing on time travel experiments and teleportation, of which this ship project was the flag project, if you want to, and the other one was really purely focusing mind control experiments with these young boys, the Montauk boys, so to speak.
Okay, I think that answers that question. So, I guess, have you got any more to say on Montauk?
Have I got any more to say on Montauk?
Where would you like to take it from here?
What I would like to say is that all these experiments that happened in the past and not such a distant past, where even children were beaten and tortured and given electronic shocks, and the development of the technologies that are used nowadays, like, for example, the Morgellons nanotechnology, of which I'm a victim of, or the increasing number of complaints of citizens that say that they are used as guinea pigs in either weaponry research or biomedical research, which will link us to Fort Detrick and what is going on in Plum Island. It's taken really alarming levels. Why I'm here, or why I wanted to discuss this and make the public aware of this, is that many people think that MK Ultra was it's finished. And that they think, okay, this was really horrible, and how could something like this happen, and how could you beat and torture or give electronic shocks to children? Well, to say that this was in the past and it was all horrible but it's now finished is an illusion. What we're finding here, and this is maybe to touch on what we said in our first and second show, is that the organization International Center Against the Abuse of Covered Technologies, because we're talking here about all electronic induction processes in mind control and mind control technologies. As I said, is organizing radio frequency scannings where I and other people have participated, and that could have it could be measured that they emit in fact a positive radio frequency. So they had positive radio frequency emissions, which could or could not mean, but let's say the likelihood that these come from a foreign body, foreign electronic body in their body, I mean, placed without informed consent, is very high. So what I want to highlight is this, and what I want people to understand is that what happened with MK Ultra and the Montauk Project and all these really horrible experiments where people were used as guinea pigs without informed consent are not over. They are, on the contrary, they're far more advanced now. These technologies have developed and are used, and MK was not stopped, and on the contrary, it's been even further developed, and the level of sophistication of these technology has reached an incredible, it's an incredible state that people don't realize that it's still going on. And we must, why am I here today? And I talked about all this, and also in our last shows, Morgellons, The Crime of Silence, and the history of mind control, is that people must realize that this goes on, and it's an extreme danger, I believe, that we all, if we don't raise awareness for this and if we don't fight against this, that we will all end up being biological robots, basically.
So it's bridging over into the population, basically. It's been behind the scenes, but now it's really starting to affect people's lives technologically. It's like a technological web, and you've literally got it within yourself.
Yes, I do. So I'm a Gallen's victim, as I said, which is, to say it again, a complete invasion of human tissue by nanotechnology. And it also has a mind control application to it. So I'm a victim of this horrendous crime. And if we don't stand up and raise public awareness and fight against this, then sooner or later the whole humanity, in my opinion, will be enslaved. And so we must now all unite and work together to save humanity and give our children the peaceful world they deserve, and work towards holding these people accountable, because these criminals, which are basically former Nazi scientists, are still in place, and the research is still, still going on. These people accountable before whole humanity is enslaved, and we are all become biological robots born into a life of torture and never-ending violence. But personally, I do not want such a world for my child. That's why I'm here today, and I don't want it for anybody of us, any citizens, and I do not want for all children of this world. So it was very important to me today that we do this show, because I believe it's only via education and raising public awareness that we can stop these things.
So do you want to explain quickly your situation with anything legal or what your team are doing?
Well, I can explain a little bit more about the RF frequency tests that we performed, and the methods that it's been used. You can find more information on the ISAACT website. In fact, so it's www.isaact, so ICAACT.org. So people can look there, but in a nutshell, so the frequency test that we did recently in London, where we last spoke about, is that in fact we scan people with a detector for the emission of radio frequency. So and many people came up positive. So it could be measured, if you want to, that this person emitted the radio frequency. So what ISAACT then recommends is that these positive radio frequency emissions are in fact matched up by medical imagery. So people in this anatomical point where you emit the frequency, you then recommended to get either an MRI scan or a CT scan, or some cases just a normal X-ray might also suffice to see if in this point the person doesn't, if we can find like a foreign object that looks like a foreign object in this point. So that basically matches up the findings of these radio frequency scanning and positive radio frequency scanning. And then step, but maybe if in future you will interview Lars Rutgert from ISAACT, as you said, if that ever happens, he will be able to explain that a little bit even better than I and more in detail, is that we basically have to redo these tests in a shielded environment, so in what's commonly referred to as a Faraday cage. Why do we have to do this? Because the Faraday cage will basically block out certain frequency that we know that are associated with some RF emissions, and so if the positive findings of the preliminary scan, which we just did in London and other cities, can be, if you want to confirm in the Faraday cage. So then we can basically we'll have a good case, because then you can prove that in fact the emissions come from your body. That we cannot, we can exclude that this could be, what some people might say that will not believe in this, or say, oh, but this could just be a frequency that is somewhere in the air that you have measured. If you obtain the same results in the Faraday cage, well then it's clear that this emits a radio frequency. So this is where we are now. There have been several preliminary RF scannings done in several cities in the United States and in Europe. The last was where I participated, and I came up positive. As you know, Chris was indeed in London, and we are at the moment, basically gathering this data, and which sooner or later then will have to be confirmed in a Faraday cage. So,
are there any events coming up, or anything else that you're working on?
Regarding the scannings, there is give the website. So icaact.org, icaact.org. You can find information there, and if there's a new scanning that's done by ICAACT that's going to come up, you can find the information there. So we're at the moment working on finding a Faraday cage to confirm these results. But once this is confirmed, I will inform you, and maybe after these tests have been performed, in future we can do another radio show about this. So any ICAACT scannings are always announced on the website, so you can see it there. Regarding Morgellons, because this was our first show, Morgellons, the crime of silence. There I have also a website to give you, so where people can find more information if they're interested about this nanotechnology and this really horrible affliction and what it does to your body. And I've also a contact name, is the Morgellons Research Group, so Morgellons Research Group, all in one word, .com. And there is one particular researcher whom I would recommend if you're interested, is Dr. Will Spencer. He works for this research group, and there you can find out more information on this particular technology. So this is what we're working at. Let's say at the moment we're just busy, collecting the data, if you want to. And what we're finding in general is that the amount of people, of the general population, that participated in these scannings, the amount of positive measurements, positive RF emissions that we found is generally much higher than it's previously expected. So
you said that the cameraman also had chips.
The cameraman, I don't know what you mean about this, but in general, I'd say that many people indeed do not know that they have this problem, and do not even know that there could be implanted with an RFID device, and are all very surprised indeed that when they're participating in the scannings that they come up positive. So, and I mean, people like I and other people, that there are people that do have symptoms, and I just repeat the symptoms I mentioned at the beginning. It's basically excruciating, horrible pain all over your body. You constantly have a current going through. You have excruciating headaches. You have electroshocks. Vertigo. So in my case, for example, I could not have missed it, so to speak, because the symptoms are so debilitating and so basically took over my life, and it's, that I knew that I was implanted with this technology without informed consent. But as you said, some people don't even know it. You know, they might have a microchip in their body without even knowing this. You know, and find out once they come to scanning. So this, of course, then, as I said, it has to. If there was a person who came up positive, expect to come up positive, it always has to be matched up with medical imagery, and then also we have to do the test. In a private cage. But yeah, some people have these symptoms, and then I think once because it is really torture. Especially in my case, but in many other victims as well, then you cannot miss it. But there are people who they have no symptoms at all.
And so it could be dormant, perhaps?
Yes, but what you do know is that certain of these technologies, what we call passive technologies, they need to be activated, if you want, to by an outside source to emit radio frequencies, or they are dormant, if you want to, or they need an outside source to activate them. That is true. So that could be one explanation why this particular person does, or why there are people that have basically no symptoms. It is true that regarding to this, is that when we did the radio frequency tests in London, there have been people. Well, generally we found many more people of the general population that are targeted with this, or victims with this, that you would suspect. But there were people who thought that they might have been victimized by this technology, and where we could not measure any radio frequency emissions coming from their body. But that doesn't mean, and people were even a little bit disappointed by this then, because when you take the trouble to such scanning, then usually you want a result, or you want to know the truth. And so some people were disappointed because we didn't find anything, and that's what we say to them. It doesn't mean because we could measure anything at that moment that there is nothing. Could be, as you say, a technology that needs outside activation that was not activated.
Well, we live in a technological grid now, an electronic soup, and
yes.
There are all these microwave towers being put up everywhere, and it's like a matrix of control, and makes you wonder how much they are using them already, or maybe it's an opportunity to use them at certain times, or maybe trigger certain people or areas of the population.
Yes, certainly. I mean, it's true that the Wi-Fi, the mobile phone network system, we have it all over, right? So it is very easy, of course, to not only use this for, information searches on the internet or mobile phones, but also for much darker, activities. That's certain. So, and I believe that this radiation that comes from these towers, it's really very much underrated. The danger of it. So, and the problem is that children are now exposed to this from very early age. The level of radiation and the danger of it is hardly, it's not really understood, I believe, by the general public, and the effects I think there will be might not concern us. I mean, us people like I that are already victims of these technologies. Of course, they concern me, but let's say general public that believe do not are not impacted by this.
Well, I understand that these devices, they could be used on different frequencies. It's like certain plastics are used to wrap things in, and certain substances are put in the plastics, etc. It's they could use different frequencies with mobile phones, etc. But they use ones that are in tune with wavelength of the brain, etc.
Yeah, that is correct. So what I just wanted to say to finish up on this is that I believe that people that do not have any particular symptoms at the moment, I believe the effects, the real dangers on health risks might not concern us. I mean, it obviously does concern me already, but it will be the next generations or our children's children that are going to really feel the health risk, of this. This radiation, this whole technology using radiation that is basically, and as you said, the soup of frequency flying over our heads and is that we're living in is hard, really underrated, I believe. The dangers.
And of course, there's genetically modified food, and this all gets back into what you were saying earlier. Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. So, I mean, it's we all like it this way. We are creatures of habit and convenience. So we all think it's great that we have the Wi-Fi and we have all this cable-less technology. But I believe that we're using it already, and we have not understood the consequences, and the danger, the threat they pose, in fact. So I mean, I'm not an expert in this, but I know that Dr. Erich Traub recently seen a video that ISAC did of him, where he explained that he had been called in as an advisor for the Tetra system, which is the emergency system used by the police and ambulances and in the United States, but more and more in Europe as well. And he was asked to do a safety report about this. And one thing is that he said that in all of the police stations that they used it, one thing which was consistent, which always came back, the level of aggressiveness of the police staff increased since they had this Tetra system.
Yeah, they became more violent and
more prone, more inclined to use violent, more aggressive behavior. They always displayed more aggressive behavior, and this was in all of the police stations. This Tetra system was used. So
and also with the military and them coming back, wearing these things all the time.
Yes,
constantly.
Yes, that's true. I mean, we basically think it's convenient, or it's easy, and we like our wireless technology, but I think we have absolutely not understood what dangers they pose, And I can only say to this that these implants, this radio frequency transmitters, basically the chips basically that are found in people, you're subject to radiation, and what I've heard is that according to the World Health Organization, the danger of being exposed to such a radiation 24 hours round the clock basically poses a risk 3 of getting cancer, in fact. So
and a child, if they hold the phone up for only so long, then it takes them hours to get back to normal again.
Yes.
Only 2 minutes holding a phone.
Yeah, of course. I mean, children's brain is not developed and extremely sensitive to radiation and the danger of exposure. So, for example, in my case, we could measure that there was a positive radio frequency emission coming from my left and also right ear now, but we could measure it from the left ear, and I can constantly hear like a whining sound, like ringing ears, tinnitus if you want to, but it's not. So I know that there is a device in there, and so basically I'm subject to radiation 24 hours around the clock, and this gives cancer. That there's no question about it, and especially brain cancer. So how deadly this is. So the longer this device is in there, the higher the risk that I'm going to succumb to cancer.
So it's also a call for help, really, for people to realize what's going on, and that we can try and help people who have this, as well as getting the word out that this is happening to the population and that it's spreading.
Yes, it's as I said, I want to raise public awareness for this problem, which is often was obviously not something that people that are doing this to us want to come out. So the public needs to be educated. The public needs to be told about this. But this is not the only thing. It's really to say a cry for help. Because I can tell you, it is not only a huge risk to my health, but also a serious. It's really a torture, electronic torture, and it's a serious. It's not a risk to my health, but it's also a risk for me to really die. So it is a cry for help, and to use the word cry. What I want to achieve by this is also what I believe the only way we can stop this is a public outcry against these technologies and these abuses. So it's a serious human rights violation, and it has to stop. And we have to save our children from becoming victims of these horrendous crimes. I think it's the worst thing you can do to a human being besides death. And for me, it's actually death. It's actually killing the person, because in inserting this technology into a human and basically rendering him a living robot, so to speak, an automaton, you actually kill the human, as a human being, as it were. So, I believe that murder can be actually added to the list of crimes that this and the regulations and that this violates. So
it's a war on humanity.
It absolutely, and I believe these technologies, these abuses, are the crime against humanity. It is transhumanism, like we discussed last time, and transferring people into biological robots that cannot, and taking our liberties, our freedoms, everything. So this has to stop. And only, as I said, a public outcry.
It should be blatant now. Where things are at, it should be blatant. And I think really it's just about linking all these different areas up for people before they fall into place anyway, and then it's going to be pretty obvious once it all falls into place, and perhaps it's then used on the population in a more overt manner. It seems pretty overt already from where I'm standing, but perhaps not enough for some people.
Yes, but you're Chris Vortex from Dream Vortex Radio, so you're wide awake. But our job, and this is what we're doing here, is to wake up the general public, to wake them up, to make them understand, to realize that this is happening, and to fight together for our rights and say no. This we will not accept. This is unacceptable, and it has to be stopped. And people that are doing this, these criminals, they have to be held accountable. And we will not accept that. This is not the future of humanity that we want. This has to be said loud and clear, and this is why we're here tonight. And hopefully the message gets out, as you said. So.
Yeah, well, hopefully this is a sign that it's not the future, and this is just it coming to the surface. And I think you're showing the strength of humanity, that you're speaking up and can carry on through all the trauma, through your child being taken away, through electronic torture, and with the Morgellons within you, and you're speaking up. You're not just being a victim. You're actually speaking up. And I think this is the strength of humanity, that when we are pushed to the edge, then we do stand up. Some of us stand up anyway. Some of us are there are some mavericks that stand up and then save things for the rest of us. So I thank you for that, for coming forward and being willing to